Discover 8 spine-chilling haunted encounters caught on camera. Sinister ghost sightings exposed. The video started with a crackling hiss, then the screen flickered to reveal a darkened hallway with peeling paint. What you're about to see will chill you to the bone, the voiceover promised. A shiver crept down Sarah's spine. What lay ahead for her that summer night was far worse than anything captured on camera. In the quiet suburb of Maplewood, Sarah had seen better days. Her husband had passed unexpectedly, leaving her a single mother facing everything alone. Bills, kids, the weight of loss. The laughter that once filled her modest home felt like a ghost now, echoing in the silence. Summer stretched before them, and while the sun shone brightly, the shadows in her heart continued to grow. Her 12-year-old son Josh had an adventurous spirit. He was obsessed with tales of the abandoned Maplewood Elementary School, a place the community whispered about in hushed tones. "Mom, let's explore it," he pleaded, camera in hand. Deep inside, Sarah felt a flutter of dread, but the spark of excitement in Mia's eyes nudged her to agree. That night, they set out beneath the covers of fading sunlight, armed with an old camcorder, ready to capture their thrill, despite the unsettling reports she had read online. Stepping into the school felt like crossing into another world. The air turned thick, their laughter ricocheting off cracked walls. Vine-like shadows coiled around forgotten desks. At first, everything seemed innocent, fleeting glimpses of relics from the past. But as night fell, the atmosphere shifted. A black cloud thick with dread hung low over them, whispering secrets Sarah wished she hadn't come to unravel. "Did you hear that?" Josh asked, pausing to look around. A chill danced through the air. It sounded like someone or something. The gravity of his words tugged at her heart. The camera flickered wildly, light bouncing against the mold-covered murals of childhood dreams long lost. "Everything's fine," she replied, but her voice trembled. They pressed on, deeper into ghostly corridors. As the building creaked underfoot, a sinister sensation crawled up her skin. She had buried her fears, but they clawed their way up, whispering warnings that prickled her neck. Then a shiver ran through the floorboards. She turned, and Josh was gone. "Josh!" Panic seized her as she called his name, a desperate cry swallowed by the oppressive silence. Each hallway seemed to twist further into darkness, an endless maze. Fear gnawed at her throat as laughter morphed into terrified screams echoing through the halls. "Mom!" he shouted, the voice pinpointing him somewhere deep within the bowels of the deserted school. She could scarcely breathe. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she had to find her son. As she rushed through a door marked staff only, the camera stumbled to the ground, dark and still, a ghostly testament to their nightmare. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their... And many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. She scrambled forward, grabbing an old yearbook that fell from a ragged shelf, revealing haunting images and chilling memories of lives lost within those very walls. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony that chilled her spine. Something was very wrong. In an instant, she thought she saw movement at the end of a hallway, darkness shifting, and behind it, a presence that felt all too familiar. "Josh!" Her voice wavered, the walls holding their breath. The shadows loomed closer, secrecy wrapped around her like a noose. What truth lurked in the shadows, and what had happened to her son? She edged further, feeling the weight of every answer she may never be ready for. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears as Sarah pressed deeper into the dim light of the school's halls, the air growing colder with every step. Her breath quickened, anxiety clawing at her throat. She strained to listen for Josh, drowning out the whispers swirling around her. Creaks and pops echoed like footsteps behind her, but when she turned, nothing but emptiness stared back. This isn't happening, she thought, her hands trembling as she instinctively clutched the yearbook. The once faded pages felt almost alive, a stark reminder of the children who once laughed and played, now silenced by time and tragedy. "Mom!" The voice was clearer this time, reverberating from the room at the end of the corridor. She dashed toward it, the floor squishing beneath her feet, each step heavy with dread. The light flickered anxiously, as if preparing to snuff out completely, and she felt a tight knot forming in her stomach. Pushing the heavy door open, Sarah stumbled into a classroom frozen in time. Desks and chairs lay strewn across the floor, the chalkboard still smeared with half-erased messages. A foul stench assaulted her senses, sweaty, musty, and curiously sweet. Her eyes darted around, searching for her son. "Josh!" she called again, louder, desperation creeping into her voice. Then it hit her. The room felt wrong. An odd chill settled in her bones. Turning slowly, she felt the sensation of something watching her. Her heart thundered louder as she caught a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. A shadow flitted across the wall, a childlike silhouette. "Josh, is that you?" she whispered, voice trembling. The figure paused, as if frozen, then darted behind the overturned desk. With shaky hands, she approached. "I'm coming, buddy," she said, forcing calm into her voice, though her pulse raced. She swept the desk aside, but nothing was there. The air grew heavier, thick with a pinching feeling, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Was this a game? Had Josh come to play? The room echoed with silence. Her pulse quickened. She almost backed away, but the echoes of past laughter lingered, haunting, tantalizing. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew through the room, flicking her hair back and sending chills down her spine. There it was again, Josh's voice, faint but close. "Mom, help me!" Panic surged, and she ran toward the sound, rushing through the narrow hallways that seemed to shift and twist, teasing her with shadows. She turned left, then right, heart racing. "Josh!" she cried, shifting shadows taunting her, dragging her deeper into the dark recesses of the school. The laughter echoed again, sharp and haunting, a chorus of children playing with her fear. Another door loomed ahead, sunlight somehow creeping in around its edges, but it felt out of reach, just like her son. The closer she got, the more she sensed a presence, a weight in the air, heavy and full of intent. "Don't go. Don't let them take you," a voice whispered in her ear, breathless and chilling. She froze, dread curling in her stomach like a snake. "What do you mean?" she gasped, spinning around to face the whisperer, but only shadows were there. The door creaked open slightly, promising escape, but behind it lay a truth she wasn't ready for. Was it Josh, or something far worse? The surface of her sanity cracked, and as she took a step forward, a cold hand gripped her arm from behind. "Mom, please!" Josh's voice was frantic, echoing from behind her, pulling her in two directions, safety or the unknown. Terror clawed at her mind. Who was calling? Which sound was real? As the grip tightened, she felt the fabric of reality stretching, threatening to break. The room darkened, and she dared to confront the unseen. What lay in wait just beyond the doorway? And how long could she keep her sanity intact? The grip on Sarah's arm felt icy, unyielding, as if shadows themselves had wrapped around her. She spun, and the school hallway erupted with the sound of children's laughter, high-pitched, joyful, yet somehow twisted. "Josh!" Her voice broke through the cacophony, desperation overcoming the chill wrapping around her. The grip tightened, pulling her backward. She yanked her arm away, stumbling into the classroom again. Shadows closed in like hungry wolves. "Mom, don't listen to them!" Josh's voice was terror-tinged and full of urgency. It shattered the mirage of laughter around her, pulling the reality back into focus. But where was he? The air thickened, wrapping around her throat like a noose. "What do you mean?" Panic cracked her voice. She squinted into the dimness of the hallway, searching for that beloved brown-haired boy who hid in shadows like a daredevil adventurer. The malicious laughter sliced through her, taunting, "Mom, please!" It was unreal, reverberating off the stained walls. The desperation in his voice dragged her heart down. She knew it was a trick, but every maternal instinct screamed to follow. She had to find him. With renewed determination, she pushed through the door, back into the hall. Her feet shuffled over the floor with a squelching sound, the echo of her steps resembling the sinister laughter that strung itself around her. She could almost taste the dread, sickly sweet on her tongue, mingling with the bitter fear that led her deeper down this cursed path. "Mom!" His voice came again, clearer this time, beckoning from around the next corner. The shadows thickened, pulsating as if alive, and she pressed on. She turned rigid as a deep, unsettling whisper curled around her. "They're waiting for you." "Shut up!" she hissed into the darkness, but the words slipped away, replaced with echoes of giggles. Desperation began to claw at her sanity. Were they waiting for her, or for Josh? With every step, uncertainty gripped her soul. Suddenly, the corridor shifted, and the walls appeared to tremble. Decay and despair hung in the air, wrapping around her like a serpent, coiling tighter, its scales digging into her skin. She had to keep moving. The hallway split ahead, one partly lit by flickering fluorescent lights, the other swallowed by darkness. "Mom!" His voice cried again, unnaturally close, yet impossible to pinpoint. She felt as though fate mocked her with each turn, each choice magnifying the stakes. Which way would lead her to Josh? The lights overhead crackled, flickering ominously, and she could sense an unnatural presence lurking in the shadows. They could see her, she thought with rising horror. Dozens of unseen eyes watched her, hungry, waiting to see which path she would choose. She felt the cold sweat trickle down her back as she took a shallow breath. "Mom!" This time, the scream was mixed with unmistakable terror. She darted down the dim corridor, the walls seeming to pulse with malevolence. "I'm coming, Josh!" she yelled, though uncertainty gnawed at her mind. What awaited her? The visions of her son, warped into grotesque shadows, danced on the periphery. Were they memories or just tricks of the dark? As she burst into the larger room, a chilling sight froze her. An array of old desks lay arranged in a circle, each one draped with a tattered cloth, their legs stained with something dark. In the center stood a twisted figure, gazing at her with eyes that seemed pits of despair. "Welcome, Sarah," it echoed, a voice soaked in malice, filled with echoes of all the children lost in this place. And then she heard it again, a pitch-perfect imitation of her son's laughter. "Don't leave me, Mom!" Frozen to the spot, she could barely breathe. "What are you?" she stammered, feeling the oppressive weight of despair crashing down around her. The figure stepped forward, its face obscured by shadows, and Sarah realized, too late, that this was no ordinary spirit. Could she save Josh before time ran out, or was she too late to carry on the fight?
This malevolent force?
The question clawed at her mind as laughter rose and swallowed her whole. The darkness beckoned. What would she dare do next? The laughter morphed into a chorus of shrieks, a twisted cacophony echoing through the stale air. Sarah's heart raced. Shadows churned and writhed around her, forming grotesque figures that twisted in macabre silhouettes. Each laugh stung her ears, imbued with malevolence, as if the walls themselves were mocking her. "Josh!" she screamed again, desperation lacing her voice. "I'm coming, hang on!" But the room seemed to swell, pulsating with a life of its own. The figure in the center loomed closer, stretching thin arms adorned with elongated fingers. It whispered in a tone that slithered into her mind, promising knowledge, but wetted with menace. "He's closer than you think." "Don't touch him!" Sarah shouted, her composure fleeking like old paint. Panic swelled into fury, stoking the fire of her determination. She had faced so many fears before, but this was a darkness that threatened to sever her hope. The figure chuckled softly, and the air thickened with blood-chilling intent. "You think you can save him?" it hissed, lips curling back to reveal a row of teeth like crooked tombstones. "You're too late." Reality warped around her, the air filled with foul scents of mildew and decay. Flickering light reflected off walls that seemed to pulse and squeeze, attempting to close in on her, pushing her toward the figure. Sarah felt their stares bore into her, hungry, longing, and furious. She was interrupting their game, and the shadows weren't happy. Suddenly, a blinding light surged from the corridor behind her. "Mom, don't go!" Josh's voice sliced through her mind like a blade. Light cascaded through the darkness, illuminating a path, but also exposing the horror surrounding her. Dozens of children, their faces emotionless, looking at her with pleading eyes, trapped in eternity. As the shadows writhed in anger, Sarah clamped her hand over her mouth, stumbling backward. They were just kids, but their laughter was sinister, mocking her futile attempts to reach her son. "Now, let's play," the figure snarled, stepping forward on elongated limbs, and the sound of dragging feet filled her ears. Sarah wanted to run, to escape, but her heart felt like lead. She could feel the coldness creeping back up her spine. "Josh!" she called again, defiance wrapping around the trembling of her voice. She had to fight. The shadows throbbed at the sound of her despair, like waves crashing against the shore, growing in fury. "Will you join us in fun?" The creature leaned in, its breath rancid and stinging. Sarah instinctively stepped back, her foot catching on the torn carpet, sending her crashing into the desk, knocking it over. The classroom shuddered at the disturbance. The children around her moaned, their voices merging into a dreadful melody. "You have to play, Sarah, play, or he will be one of us." The figure rose into the air, looming menacingly above her, beckoning her. With trembling fingers that promised both wonder and doom, terror thundered through her veins. "I won't play!" she shouted, and suddenly the classroom plunged into darkness, more profound than before. The oppressive shadows swallowed the light, and she felt an existence far beyond the physical realm, a pull of despair tensing her body like a tightly coiled spring. Then silence fell, a silence so loud it roared in her ears. Fear gripped her throat, but she had to push through. "Where are you, Josh?" she whispered into the void, scared for her sanity. The absence of his voice echoed louder than any plea, making the emptiness feel like a hollow pit in her stomach. As the shadows closed in, points of fear pricked her skin. Was she truly alone? Then a faint flicker sparked in the distance, a light, steady and true, shimmering through the veil of darkness. Sarah squinted, her heart racing with hope. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her closer with every ounce of her will. But as she stepped toward it, the shadows heaved once more, thrumming with an anger that shook the very foundation of the school. "You'll never escape us," they echoed. And then, all at once, the light flickered out. The darkness enveloped her, sharp and unforgiving. Sarah stood frozen, her breath shallow, fearing the very air around her. The absence of light was suffocating, pressing in like a weight on her chest. Her mind raced, grappling with the uncanny silence, a stark contrast to the maddening chaos she had just escaped. "Josh!" she called again, her voice a desperate whisper. But the shadows answered not with words, but with a chilling laughter that echoed through the void, a sound filled with glee and malice that made her skin crawl. With her heart pounding, she fumbled forward, hands outstretched as if she could pluck hope out of the air. Each step felt like a descent into something darker. Just as she thought she'd made no progress, the walls began to shift and rearrange. They leaned in, looming over her, as if they were alive, threatening to consume her whole. "Do you want to play?" a chorus of malicious voices cooed, blending seamlessly with the fabric of the darkness surrounding her. "Get away from me!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. She hurled herself backward, stumbling over the remnants of overturned desks. They splintered around her like broken bones. The shadows writhed and circled, angry at her refusal, and the laughter morphed into a roar that shook her very soul. But amid the cacophony, Josh's voice cut through, clear and plaintive. "Mom, help!" The sound was a beacon, piercing through the dark lid, suffocating her resolve. "Hold on!" she yelled, her feet moving again, driven by a primal instinct to save her son. She couldn't falter. She had to find him. The shadows hissed, twisting around her ankles, dragging her down. "Join us," they whispered, their breath like ice, each word a bead of terror that dripped onto her resolve. She felt their hands, cold and clammy, brush against her skin. Panic surged as she kicked and shoved, fighting to keep them at bay. "Not today," she growled, her fury rising like a tempest. She lunged forward, pushing through the oppressive darkness, sometimes hitting walls that felt soft like flesh. Every ounce of fear screamed that she was being watched, being played with, and it only intensified her determination. As she fought past the shadows, she saw them begin to break apart. Here and there, flickers of light began to emerge, not the warm glow she had hoped for, but flashes of distorted figures. The children. Their eyes were wide, fear mingling with the enjoyment of their twisted fate. "Mom, please, hurry!" Josh's voice cracked through the thickening air, a lifeline choked by despair. Beads of sweat trickled down from her brow, mixing with the heat of panic consuming her. "Where are you?" The darkness answered with a writhing mass, bobbing and twisting like a grotesque marionette. Shadows reached out, grasping for her, claws extended with a hunger that churned her stomach. "Your son is one of us now." The figure loomed back into her vision, swaying slightly. Its face was a mockery of childhood innocence, a spidering smile stretched wide. "You'd better hurry before the fun begins." "Mom!" Josh cried again, now underlined with urgency. Sarah clenched her fists, gripping her terror and transforming it into something fierce. There had to be a way through this nightmare. She had to end it before it consumed them both. Heart racing, she sprinted toward the newest burst of light, pulse hammering in her ears. The shadows screamed in protest, the pain in her lungs threatening to scream for her to stop. Then, just as she felt a glimmer of hope, the shadows recoiled, constructing a wall that towered before her, ancient and solid. In despair, she pounded on the dark surface, fists striking against the abyss. "Let him go! You can't have him!" The wall shivered, and slowly, quaking beneath her fists, it began to dissolve, revealing not an escape, but a deeper corridor of darkness crawling with shadows and echoes. As she breathed heavily, a deep growl resounded from the darkness. "Are you ready to play, Sarah?" Each word weighed heavy, like an executioner's final decree. The walls shrank closer, the laughter grew disruptive. She understood now, the game had only just begun. But at what cost would she pay to find her son? The corridor stretched out like an endless promise of despair. Sarah squared her shoulders and took a step forward into the creeping darkness, every instinct screaming to turn back. Yet the echo of Josh's voice thrummed in her ears, a painful reminder of what was at stake. "Mom!" The shadows swirled with anticipation, closing in, their whispers a symphony of chaos. "What's the matter, Sarah?" they teased, their glee sharp and slicing. "Don't you want to play?" Breath hitching, she pressed onward, navigating the oppressive fog that felt almost sentient. Each step resonated with the hollow sound of emptiness, echoing the void in her heart. The corridor felt alive, writhing beneath her feet, shifting and twisting as if it were a living creature, hungry and searching. A flicker of motion caught her eye, something moving just beyond her sight. A fleeting shadow danced at the edge of her vision, barely a wisp against the insatiable dark. She turned her head quickly, her pulse racing, but it had vanished, leaving behind an unsettling stillness. Suddenly, the corridor widened, spilling into a cavernous chamber that felt impossibly vast. The air thickened, heavy with soot and decay. In the center stood an ancient table, warped and splintered. Surrounding it, flickering images floated in the air, suspended against the suffocating gloom. They were children, their faces contorted in fear, twisted smiles lingering long after the image had faded. "See what we've done?" the shadows whispered, their voices dripping with malice. They thought they could escape? "Josh!" Sarah screamed, panic surging through her veins like wildfire. She darted to the table, her hands trembling as she brushed against its surface. Instantly, the images flashed fiercely, children playing, laughing, but slowly morphing into writhing figures trapped in darkness. "Join us?" The echo of their laughter rang hollow, a cruel taunt that twisted her stomach. "No!" Sarah shouted, fury igniting her fear. She wouldn't let this happen to her son. She didn't know how, but she was ready to fight. As she steadied herself, the darkness around her thickened, swirling more violently. It felt like being pulled into a black whirlpool, and she staggered, desperate to find her footing. The shadows pulsed with excitement, greedily moving closer, eager to consume her. "Leave him alone!" she cried out, feeling her voice falter against the weight of the atmosphere.
You don't own him!" With that declaration, a sudden silence fell. The shadows paused, their hunger ebbing slightly. She felt that she had struck a nerve, but it was only a fleeting moment. The darkness quickly surged back, now more furious than before, spiraling overhead like a storm. "Insulting, isn't it?" one shadow hissed, its form coiling and shaking with rage. "You think you can win?" Sarah's heart raced as a roar split the silence. The shadows twisted into monstrous shapes, grotesque visages of what they once were, their eyes glowing with a manic light. They surged forward, but she backed away, refusing to yield. Then, from deep within the chaos, another voice emerged, soft, almost melodic. "Mom, please." It was Josh, but it was different now. The shadows lessened for a heartbeat, revealing a darkened door at the far side of the chamber. It loomed, crackling with an unnatural energy that sent shivers down her spine. Everything inside her screamed to run, yet she felt an unexplainable pull toward that ominous threshold. "Help me, Mom," he called again, his voice desperate, echoing her resolve. With her heart pounding, she charged toward the door. The shadow
Writhed, reaching out to pull her back, clawing at her legs, but she sprinted, refusing to yield. Each footfall echoed her resolve, the laughter behind her turning frantic, their hold breaking. Just as she grasped the doorknob, a final shriek tore through the air. "You can't escape!" She twisted the handle, heart racing, the world blurring around her. But the door didn't budge. It felt alive, resisting her. Shadows clamored at her arms, wrenching her back, hunger renewed, as if sensing victory so close. As she struggled, she barely noticed the laughter catching fire, morphing into screams of unyielding frustration. The shadows churned around her, and suddenly the door swung open, a blinding white light tearing through the darkness. "Sarah, come on!" Josh's voice rang like thunder, stronger now, brave enough to cut through the terror. It was now or never. She lunged forward into the light. But as she crossed the threshold, shadows flared, and she felt them tearing at her soul, a final ploy to draw her back into the void. The door slammed shut behind her, but at what cost? In silence, she turned, breathless, trembling. Josh stood before her, yet something was different in his eyes. They burned, reflecting something dark and unfathomable. "Welcome back, Mom." Her stomach dropped. What had she unleashed? Sarah stumbled back, legs unsteady, breath hitching as dread washed over her. The light that had felt so liberating now flickered ominously, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, distorting Josh's familiar form. His smile, once reflecting innocent trust, now twisted into something unrecognizable, a mask of darkness smeared across his features. "Josh?" she whispered, a tremor in her voice. She reached out, trembling fingers brushing the surface of his arm. Heat surged through her, but it wasn't the warmth she remembered. "What's happening?" "You shouldn't have come here," he said, the words slithering out like venom, dripping with malice. His eyes flickered, revealing slivers of shadow swirling beneath the surface. "You broke the rules. Now they're hungry." Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her chest like a frantic drum. The shadows around her stirred violently, pulsating and shifting, almost as if they were alive, acknowledging the truth he revealed. "No, I came to save you," she replied, desperation lacing her voice. "Save me?" Josh echoed, laughter like shards of glass slicing through the air. The sound sent a chill down her spine, reminding her of the tormented laughter she had heard moments ago. "You don't understand. I'm free now. I chose to stay.
The darkness is my friend. Her stomach twisted. No, you're my son. You're not free. You're trapped. With each word, shadows lunged forward, swirling around her, encroaching like a tangible fog. The air crackled with dread, and the closer they came, the more Sarah began to see their true forms. Faces warped in agony, eyes pleading yet filled with an insatiable hunger. "Join us," the whispers echoed, too many voices clawing into her mind. "You can't fight it." "Leave him alone," she shouted, grounding
herself in the moment, casting off her fear like an ill-fitting cloak. "I won't abandon you, Josh. I won't." Before she could blink, Josh transformed. The innocence faded, revealing a shadowy figure. The malice tightened around him, a silhouette of her son intertwined with the darkness, his true form obscured. Yet a flicker, a fragment of her Josh, sparked in those haunting eyes. "Mom, help me." Sarah surged forward, desperation clawing at her chest. With a guttural scream, she pulled him toward her, reaching until her fingertips kissed the void between light and shadow. In that fleeting moment, she felt a wave of warmth cascade through her, pushing against the encroaching darkness. "Come on, fight it!" she yelled, pure determination filling her voice. "You're stronger than this!" The chamber trembled, the shadows recoiling, furious at her defiance. Fleeting images of children floated around her, their cries filling her ears, weaving a dreadful tapestry of despair. And yet she held on, anchoring her energy to the small sliver of hope she could feel in Josh. "Stay with me!" That moment stretched, caught between light and utter darkness. With every ounce of strength, she tugged with all her might, urging the embers of her son to break free from the suffocating grip of the shadows. Suddenly, it was like reality shifted. The air cracked, white light shimmering around them, battling the encroaching shadows. A battle of will surged throughout the chamber, and the sound of crushing despair transformed into wails of rage. "Fool, you can't save him!" The shadowy figures hissed, their tendrils clawing at her resolve. But in her heart, she could feel it converge, the bond that couldn't be extinguished. "We can do this together, Josh. I will be your light." The darkness shuddered, wavering, and she saw it, the brief flicker of recognition in Josh's eyes. And in that moment, she realized it was never just about her fighting the shadows, but about awakening the light within him. Then a roar ripped through the chamber, the shadows twisting into a violent cyclone. It swirled around them, a maelstrom of anger and despair, fighting against the light growing stronger, sparking hope. What would become of the darkness? And would Josh choose to face it or melt further into the abyss? Just when she thought they might break free, everything shattered. The chamber broke apart, and a new sound rose. A deafening scream echoed as if the very walls were collapsing under the weight of their confrontation. The floor cracked beneath her, a fissure now splitting the space between her and Josh. He was slipping, the shadows clawing at him, dragging him back. "Mom!" he cried, the desperation pure, ripping through the chaos. "No!" Sarah reached out, feeling the icy grip of despair. Which would prevail, the light she was fighting to rekindle, or the shadows that hungered for his soul? In that heart-stopping instant, she knew she had only one chance left. Would it be enough? The ground beneath Sarah's feet shattered like glass, sending her tumbling forward into the abyss. Staring up at Josh, who remained trapped in the dark cyclone, panic erupted into a fever pitch within her. "Hold on, Josh!" she screamed, stretching out her arms, willing the rift between them to close. But the shadows hissed around him, pulling mercilessly, whispering dark secrets that promised freedom in exchange for surrender. She could hear them, deafening her thoughts with their words. A symphony of chaos. "He belongs to us. He can be free forever." "No!" she screamed, every fiber of her being igniting with defiance. She pressed forward, gritting her teeth against the fear clawing at her heart. "I will not let you take him!" With a surge of strength, the white light around her intensified, breaking the shadow's grip just enough for her to leap forward. She felt the warmth on her skin as she slammed into the ground, rolling painfully but determined. As she scrambled to her feet, she spotted that fleeting spark of her Josh still flickering within the shadows. "Remember who you are," she called out, her voice breaking above the cacophony. "I love you, Josh! Fight it!" Josh's form flickered in and out of view, surrounded by a tempest of wails and menacing laughter. But for a brief moment, he looked at her, eyes full of fear and desperation. "Mom, I'm scared." "Don't let them win." She pressed her palms together, her heart racing. "You're stronger than this. You are not alone." The cyclone roared, blood-curdling howls filling the chamber. But Sarah refused to back down. Gathering her energy, she focused on the connection they shared, the love that had brought her through this nightmare. With each heartbeat, she felt the light grow more intense, pushing back against the tide. "Together!" she shouted, her voice resolute, echoing in the darkness. "We can do this together, Josh!" The shadows writhed, recoiling as her words sliced through their hold like a knife. Ghostly faces contorted in rage, their whispers turning into anguished shrieks. "You cannot resist forever!" they screamed in unison, their voices a chilling wind that threatened to sweep her away. But Josh's shadowed figure began to shimmer, caught between two worlds, the dark and the light. The flicker of warmth emanating from him danced against the chill of despair. She could almost see his shape solidifying, the outlines of his true form breaking through. Just then, the ground gave another violent tremor, and a crack split open wider. Shadows rushed toward her from all sides, and she could feel hands, cold and full of despair, grasping her ankles. "Mom!" Josh cried out again, his voice strained. His form wavered, shifting and flickering. The shadows were relentless, digging into their connection, threatening to pull him back into their abyss. "Fight it, Josh! Fight!" she shouted. Desperation fueled her legs, propelling her forward to the edge of the rift. She knelt and stretched out her fingers, reaching as far as she could. Suddenly, the light surged, sparking in response to their shared love. And courage. It began to push back. The shadows shrieked, their grip weakening just long enough for Josh to regain some form. She saw the glimmer in his eyes, the spark of hope igniting once more. "Mom, I can see the light!" "Then come to me!" Sarah shouted, heart racing. Would it be enough? Would he leap into the unknown? The shadows shrieked one last time, a cacophony of defeat resonating through the chamber. With a final push, the ground beneath her split open once more, the darkness swirling violently, ready to claim what was left. In that moment, Sarah felt the tug of the abyss, but also the warmth of her son reaching back. "Hold on, Josh!" What would happen when their hands met? Would they both be reunited, or would they be consumed by the shadows? The answer teetered on the edge of oblivion, with only a heartbeat echoing in the chaos. A deafening silence fell, gripping the air as if the world held its breath, waiting. Sarah felt the shadows writhe and twist around her like thousands of snakes, but she focused on the light, the only thing keeping her grounded in this swirling nightmare. "Just a little closer!" she shouted, heart pounding harder than ever, the weight of desperation pulling her down. Then, Josh's hand broke through the darkness, a pale, trembling grasp reaching for her, just inches away. "Mom, I can't!" His voice wavered. The shadows coiled tighter around him, pulling insistently, whispers clawing at the edges of his mind. "They're too strong. I don't know if I can fight them." "Fight!" Sarah yelled, straining to keep the light alive. "You're stronger. Remember the games we played, the stories we read. You are not theirs. You belong to the light." The cry ripped from her throat as she felt the shadows creeping up her legs, icy fingers sending shivers racing through her spine. "Together," Josh echoed feebly, and for a flickering second the darkness paused, as if stunned, confused by the bond they shared. But then the ground shuddered violently, ripping her focus. The rift gaped wider, and the shadows shrieked with all the fury of tortured souls. They flung themselves at her, tendrils of darkness reaching for her face, suffocating. They yearned to swallow her whole. "Let him go!" she screamed, mustering every ounce of strength. The light flared brighter, shooting beams of luminescence in all directions. The chilling shadows recoiled, disoriented but relentless. "Josh!" she cried, her voice thin, worn to the bone. "You are not alone. You have me. Remember when you faced the monster under your bed? How brave you were!" A brief flicker of recognition ignited in his eyes. "Mom, yes, I remember." Sarah pushed through the air of despair, willing her light to wrap around him like a shield. She stretched her fingertips toward his. "Then hold on, I believe in you." The shadows released a fury of anguished screams, and the noise nearly drowned out her pleas. The chaos around them became a feral beast, clawing, biting, shrieking. It felt like they were being torn apart, inch by agonizing inch. "Mom!" Josh cried, panic slipping into his voice. "I can't!" "Just reach!" she shouted, the light pulsating defiantly. "Reach! I won't let you go!" In one final push, she lunged, fingers brushing against the coolness of his hand. An electric shock raced through them, a current of desperate hope. They locked eyes, the light reflecting in their souls for that heart-stopping second. But the shadows howled, and amid the chaos, something shifted. A deeper darkness rippled beneath them, making the ground quiver. "We will take your light," they hissed, as the shadows surged with renewed power, dragging Josh backward, fighting against Sarah's grasp with their relentless pull. "Josh!" Panic clawed at her throat as she felt his hand slipping. And then a blinding flash erupted. The shadows screamed in pain as the light expanded, shimmering like stars, but it wasn't enough. A split second of unity sparked, and Josh hung in the balance. Time froze. Would he be pulled back or escape into her waiting arms? A gaping maw of darkness opened beneath them, threatening to consume everything. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her once more. "Mom!" Josh's voice faded, reverberating against the howling chaos. As the ground trembled and the light flickered, one horrifying thought struck her. What if defeating the shadows meant losing her son forever? She tightened her grip, a desperate sob catching in her throat as the rift deepened. Then, just as swiftly, the light around them dimmed and flickered, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. What awaited them on the other side of that rift? The question lingered like an unwelcome ghost, suffocating the hope that was left. With a final surge of energy, Sarah's heart exploded into a fierce whirlwind of determination. "Josh, come back to me! Fight!" she screamed, the words echoing through the deafening chaos around her. They pierced the swirling darkness like beams of fire, igniting the light that still flickered within him. The shadows lashed out, clawing at her, desperate to pull Josh back into their cold embrace. Yet the warmth of their bond crackled in defiance. As if by instinct, Sarah gathered every ounce of love, hope, and fierce maternal instinct she had, focusing it all into a radiant beam that burst through the darkness. In that moment, everything changed. Josh's eyes widened, catching the flicker of light that stretched between them. "Mom!" he cried, voice filling with newfound strength. The shadows recoiled, hissing in pain, momentarily losing their grip. "Reach for me," she urged,
clenching her teeth against the weight of the darkness. She felt the thrill of connection, a bridge of light that shattered the shadow's control, wrapping around Josh like a protective blanket. Then, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet, as if vying for their attention. "You'll never escape," the shadows roared.
Chorus of hate that reverberated like thunder. "Together!" Josh echoed once more, the shadows clenching around him. But she could see it. The flicker of recognition was back. The brightness of their shared love surged, illuminating both their faces. With every heartbeat, the warmth became a shield against the encroaching darkness, crucial and relentless. The moment hung in the air, and she grasped at the proof of their connection, driven by the love that was far too strong to let them go. "I believe in you, Josh. We're stronger than this." Just as it seemed the shadows would prevail, Josh's hand shot forward, breaking the confines of the dark, reaching for her with palpable desperation. "I won't let go," he gasped. It was instantaneous. Their hands locked together, and an electric shock rippled through them, a surge of love overwhelming the shadows that had long sought to possess them. Light illuminated the chamber brighter than ever, burning through the darkness as if it were paper. The shadows shrieked in fury, their screams weaving with the cries of the children trapped within. "Let us go!" the shadows roared, thrashing wildly as the light expanded, pushing back against their suffocating grip. The air crackled with magic and raw emotion. Sarah could feel the bond amplified, radiating outwards, awakening the memories of the children once lost in this agonizing void. "We're free!" Sarah shouted, every syllable ringing with hope. "You don't have to be afraid!" And then, with a final pulse, their love exploded outward, a bright, suffocating wave of defiance that sent the shadows reeling. All at once, the tumultuous roar quieted to a whisper, the darkness fracturing as if it had no power left. As the shadows shrank back, Sarah could see the light overcoming them, flickering figures of children breaking free from their dark shackles. The spirits danced, laughter echoing in sweet release, swirling around her like a warm embrace. "Mom!" Josh said, joy illuminating his face, pulling her back into the present. The void around them melted into shimmering light, washing away layers of anguish. With an overwhelming rush, they tumbled through the door of light, leaving the shadows behind. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt hope rising high in her chest. The light surrounded them like a cocoon, wrapping them warmly, ensuring they were safe. As they emerged into the world, the chaos faded, replaced by the comforting sounds of the outside world. Birds chirping, children laughing, sunlight pooling across the ground. She clung to Josh, breathless, tears flooding her eyes. He was safe. They were safe. "I thought I lost you," she whispered, running trembling fingers over his arm. "I'll never let you go again." His face was bright, his smile radiating warmth and strength. "We did it, Mom! We beat them!" "Yes, we did," she said, laughter bubbling over the tears. "And we will always face the darkness together." As they walked down the sidewalk, side by side, the shadows of Maplewood Elementary disappeared into memory. Weight upon Sarah's chest began to lift, and while she knew the battle might come again, she also understood one undeniable truth. Love was far more powerful than any darkness. The connection between them, forged in fire and unyielding in its intensity, would always guide them home. As the sun dipped below the horizon, golden light washed over them, a promise of brighter days ahead. And so they walked on, hand in hand, into the future. This is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this jaw-dropping ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this heart-stopping conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Grab onto the thrill of our tales that keep you on the edge of your seat.